All right. Welcome to the show. First things first, if you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcast, watching on YouTube, please subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. We appreciate all the love and support. Today, I'm going to introduce a very special guest. He is the CEO of Precision Medical Products. He started this business out of his own garage and is now well over $100 million company. Another fun fact about this guest, he built the largest residential pool ever in California. He pretty much went to Hawaii, was at a resort. He's like, yeah, I want this in my backyard in California. So without further ado, Jeremy Perkins, CEO, Precision Medical Products. Thank you for taking the time to come to the show. And what a ride it's been for you, right? Can you explain what it's been like to have a company in your garage to building a multi-million-dollar pool in your backyard?
Yeah, so I started Precision Medical Products. It was actually about 13 years ago. So I actually just started because the company I was with at the time was like, I was just having a lot of frustrations with them. They kept lowering commissions for sales reps and stuff. So I'm like, I'm gonna do it myself. So in the beginning, it was real small. It was just me, the first month, and then I hired like a buddy month 2, and then we just had a couple of friends join. I never thought, like, today we're in 44 states. We had another state last month. So yeah, 44 states, about 260 employees. And we did about 60 million last year. And we're cutting back this year, kind of. We can talk about that, but just being strategic with some basically making things more profitable. So we'll finish this year about 45, 50 million. That's the high level of what we did. Probably the most thing I'm proud of, though, instead of being like, there's a lot of companies out there, but one of the things we really take a lot of pride in, we have 22 patents, 22 medical device patents. We've created and innovated a lot of great technology the last 5 years that helps save lives, and it really helps patients rehab and get back to health quicker. So our main product prevents blood clots, and I don't know if do you guys know much about blood clots? I don't know.
A little bit.
Yeah, I feel it's one of those things that you don't really know until it's too late, right? Like that's the problem. I think I remember reading about your company, and that was the big thing is you have a device that can, stop that or basically detect it before it's too late. You get a blood clot to the brain, you're done, So yeah, tell us about that. That's pretty interesting.
Yes, that's kind of been our company in the last 13 years is we either distribute other people's products or we do our own product. So there's a couple of core products we have that are ours. And one of those is the blood clot prevention. It's kind of been I think as an entrepreneur, like when you start your company, you just need to do anything. Like we did a lot of Me Too products in the beginning and just try to have a great service. And, we didn't have much money. So we started from scratch with, other people's stuff. But probably about, after about 5 years of building the company bigger and bigger, we realized that, the DVT prevention, it's the number 2 way people die in hospitals. More people die each year. It's about 200,000 people die each year. It's more than highway fatalities, breast cancer, AIDS, something else like combined. The numbers are a lot higher. And the crazy thing is with everything happening with COVID, the blood clot deaths are going up and up. And I'm not getting into politics or anything.
What's that can of worms there that you just opened up? I didn't notice. Yeah,
I stay out of that, man. I got 260 employees there. You end up pissing off people either way. So regardless of that, there is more blood clots, and however that happens. But there's been more blood clots, and our whole goal and vision with the company, our main device goes home with patients. So about 10 years ago, this whole thing, what you alluded to, Branden, it's called a silent killer. So nobody knows about it until you have like, oh, my uncle just died from a blood clot. Like I didn't even know what it was. And they dive into it, and it happens to old people and young people. One of the people we've sponsored the last, I think, 6 years now was a high school runner out of Rockland High School, right, where we're all from. She died at age 16 from a blood clot. So she was for medication. She was on birth control at a young age for some other issues, and she developed a clot and passed away at age 16. So it's pretty crazy, like there's not a lot of education out there on it. So that is our purpose. I don't want to go long-winded on it, but That's kind of what we wake up every day is like, how do we save lives and prevent blood clots? Our device goes home with patients, and they wear it in the house. So
Yeah, that hits home for me. I had one of my best friends in college. He had knee surgery, and he was just sitting out by his truck, got a blood clot to the brain, fell down, hit his head, coma, and passed away. So that definitely hits home for me. How like so someone like people like us, right? How would we even get that started? Like, right, like do we ask our provider, or is there a specific product that you guys recommend that you make that obviously you feel works the best, or how would an average guy get checked for something like that?
I mean, as much as I like to push our product, like it helps and stuff, but the reality is there's like three ways people can get blood clots, right? It's one of them's having surgery. So if you just had like a recent surgery, it's called vessel wall damage. So it's because there's an incision that you're more likely to have a clot occur. So that's one way, and that's what our device does. It goes home with the patient. You wear it from 7 days to 30 days, and just when you're laying there, it squeezes your calves and pumps blood. It like mimics what you do by walking, right? Which is number two. Way people get blood clots is just not, they call it non-ambulatory. So it's like you're not moving, but that might not be from surgery. That might be from, I don't know, you just broke your foot, or, I mean, like obese people, for example, a lot of it just like don't move much in general, or another big example of way people got them is like long plane flights. You'll go on like a plane flight internationally, and you're on a plane for 12 hours, 14 hours, you're sitting there the whole time. So you don't want your body like not move, not ambulating. So like little things, like if you're on a plane, like get up every 2-3 hours, just move around, walk, go to the bathroom, come back. Just walking alone gets the blood moving, and that's what prevents the clot. So it's things like that. There's also like certain medications like birth control and other things that can make you more high risk. There's something called thrombolytic factor 5, so you'd be genetically more disposed to, or more likely to get a blood clot. So there's little things like that. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to education. The main thing that like save your life is if you ever feel your calf swollen a little bit or red, or it's tender to the touch, you can feel a little swelling. It feels different. Go get checked out immediately. Like they can put a Doppler on you. If you catch a blood clot right away, you're fine. Like they'll put you on a blood thinner. You'll be good to go. I think it's like 99% survival rate at that point.
All right, is there a at-home kit or anything like that, or do you have to go through your provider?
No, because you're gonna go in a urgent care or like an emergency room and get a Doppler done. They're gonna use one of the actual Dopplers and see if there's a clot in there. But the problem is like, and I'm the kind of same way. I'm the worst person on this. Like I only go to the doctor once a year. In all reality, I probably go once every 3 years. I don't. I feel like I work out. I'm healthy. Like my body can fight things. It's kind of like probably the attitude a lot of people have. So it's one of those things where you just got to know that particular thing, like your calf swollen, because that's where a lot of blood clots occurs in your calf, and it moves up your leg and into your lungs. You get a pulmonary embolism and you die. Like it's the silent killer is crazy. So that's my whole thing. Like just education. If you ever experience that, then one of our sales reps. Do you know Corey Fretland at all? He's out of Rockland.
No, I don't know him.
His neighbor was out walking one day and walked by his neighbor, and his neighbor's like, "Oh man, I've been sick, laying down, like my calf hurts, it's swollen." He's like, "You got to get checked right away." He's like, "That's what I do for a living." And Corey told me about it in the beginning. He's like, "I thought I was just paranoid because it's like, well, we live in this every day and hear bad stories, But the guy went in and had a blood clot and was actually moving up his leg. They caught it, and they're like, "You would have been dead within 4 or 5 days if he wouldn't have told you about that." So it's like,
yeah, I had no idea. I don't know. Like now I'm stretching my calf right now. I'm like, man, I'm going to be checking out my calf every morning.
Yeah, no, this definitely hits close to home for me. My sister just recently had surgery, and she's been laid up in bed for a few days and really can't move much. It's a hip replacement type thing. So I mean, she's kind of stuck. She can't do much. And that seems sort of like what your goal was here, right? Was basically to help people that just had, surgeries and stuff, because that happens all the time where people actually die after the surgery or get complications from things after the fact. So was that your main goal, was basically, I'm worried about people after the fact, or was there other things that kind of led to this discovery and this product?
I tell every entrepreneur, because I'm passionate about entrepreneurship, you just got to go out there and start a company. Like in the beginning, we were doing cold therapy for athletes and people because like cold therapy reduces swelling. It helps with pain relief. There's a big epidemic right now with pain meds. You guys probably hear about it. It's like people are addicted to pain meds, and it's crazy the negative repercussions from that. So cold therapy is like an all natural alternative to that. Like these machines that hook up and help you. So that's when our company very first started, with just cold therapy. But the same surgeons we were working with were like, what can you do with these blood clots? Like this is, and then we started researching it. We found products that would work. We started our whole, probably our one rate limiting issue in our company is we have to bill insurance companies. So at the end of the day, we could probably do a lot more business than we do now. It's just insurance companies won't pay for stuff. So we're like, I have 86 people in our company. I mean, you look at the quick numbers, about 1/4 of all people we have in our company work solely in the billing department to get stuff billed out. Like we fight with insurance companies all day. They don't want to pay for stuff. So not to be long-winded on it, that's kind of what happened. Like we were doing cold therapy, we were doing bracing, other products, and then you just listen to your customers, and they're like, you know, the surgeons we work with are our customers, and they said, you know, what can you do for this particular device? And for people listening, I would just say, because this is like what I'm really passionate. I'm like, I don't even know. It's probably too long. I'm 3 or 4 years into writing a book, and I got ADD, so I'll write like a chapter, then I won't write anything for like 3 months. I'll write a chapter, and then I'll go redo the chapter. I don't know. Who knows if this thing will ever get published? But if it does, it'll be good. It'll be pretty good because I put a lot of time into it. And one of the chapters on there is you know, around the principle of just getting started. Like it doesn't matter what you do. Like I thought about starting a business for like 5 years. I'm like, would I do this or should I do that? And what I found, like looking back, like 20 years later, I should have just started something. And Branden, I know you're successful in your business. Tim, I don't really know your background, but Branden, you could probably relate, right? Like when you started your company, you probably started with some product that, whether it was good or not, who knows? But then you evolve like month by month, quarter by quarter, and you bring on new stuff. So that's what I really encourage people to do. There's so many people I talk to. They're like, hey, I want to start a company. What do you think about this idea? I'm like, just freaking do it. Like, even if your idea sucks and you get going, you talk to other people, you might pivot and you might change your company right away to something else. But the fact that the ship has left the harbor and you're out there doing something, that's what will, like, you know, create a great company one day. A lot of really, really good companies look totally different 10 years later than when they first started. And that's my big encouragement to everybody is like, just try something, because like entrepreneurship is really fun and you can make a big difference. You could change the world. You could save lives. You know, you could do whatever. You know, you could, I know like Elon's whole thing. I moved to Austin, Texas, so I get more, you know, I get more Elon propaganda here in Austin, but it is inspiring to hear these entrepreneurs that are trying to do things that it really change the world, and it motivates me. So I don't know. I'm glad I started my company. Something I really, really recommend. If people are passionate and want to, you know, do things, just try a company and get it going. So
yeah, that's what I tell everyone. That's you're right on spot. That for there, gosh, it's an early morning. That didn't even make sense. Is that a different?
No, there
language?
was no words. You just need to stop a little.
But yeah, I tell everyone, they're like, oh, because you go to barbecues, you're hanging out with your friends. Oh, I want to start this, but in reality, they don't do it. No one, 99% of those conversations, they never pull the trigger. And what I tell everyone is just do it. Like, everyone's like, well, this is going to happen, or this has been done before, or they have every excuse in the book not to do it, but you just got to do it and you'll figure it out. You know, that's the best advice. So everyone listening out there, this guy's, $100 million company plus, and I don't even know what it's valued at now, probably way, way more than that. But that's the best advice anyone can give an entrepreneur is do it. Like, quit talking about it, quit telling your buddies about it, writing these big business plans. Business plans are great, but you got to do it.
Hey, you know what's funny? I never talked about this because I got like crazy ADD, right? Like my ADD is insane. So when I first started my company, I tried to do a business plan, but then it like kept changing every week. It's almost like how I was talking about the book. I was like, the first 3 years of the company. So I started my garage and I started hiring people, and we was like sales, great customer service. Well, at year 3, we got #1 fastest growing company in all Sacramento. Okay. So this is 30, and this isn't Sacramento. It's like a 100-mile radius of Sacramento of any company in that region. There's 3,500 companies at the time that were competing, and we got number one. And then I didn't know what I was doing. Like, it's my first company, never CEO. No, I tried to get funding. Nobody would give me money. They're like, why would we trust you? So it's all like, I had no advantages, like nothing in my favor. No private equity, no venture capital, self-funded, out of the garage. We didn't even know the products. I was like, I just want to start a company and I want to provide products. So we'll try a bunch of stuff. We tried everything those first 6-12 months, right? We did not know where, like, if people, I wish there was I wish we would have documented this, because people would have been like, oh my gosh, I can do way better than this guy. Like, it was not like anything, it wasn't talent or anything special, but we tried really hard, worked really hard, and had good attitudes, right? So the point of it, after 3 years, we get number one fastest growing company in Sacramento out of 3,500. Nobody grew faster than us. Now they do it on a 2-year run rate. Like, so year one, we were small, and then we had the next 2 years, we grew a lot. So we got number one. The crazy thing, they did this tracking for like 70 years in SAC Business Journal. We hit it again the next year, number one out of 3,500. To hit it back to back is almost impossible, because if you grow a ton, it's so hard to grow a ton again, because you're already it's on percentage growth. So I already have to grow a really high number, and we did it back to back. And the point on it, like, at the end of the day, it was just like, came down like passion, hunger, intensity, and just really, like, putting our heads down, having fun, and just trying hard. And it's like, business can be really, really fun. Like, for me, I was never a good athlete. I was super competitive, and I always wanted to be a good athlete, but I wasn't the tallest kid on the basketball court. I couldn't hit the farthest on the baseball field, but I was freaking competitive. And I sit there at night in business and be like, dude, how am I going to take down my competitor? And I couldn't go to sleep. Be like, I'm going to do this. How can I get this account over here? What products can we do? How can we, like, there's all these things in my head that just keep spinning. And so, it sounds simple, right? People always ask you, people probably ask you, Branden, I'm like, hey, how'd you get your company? How'd you grow it? How'd you scale it? And there's not like you're not going to be sitting there at a barbecue and be like, yeah, let me answer your question in 2 minutes. In this next 2 minutes, I'm going to tell you the key. It's going to make you a multimillionaire. It's not going to happen, right? So that was the principle why I want to write this book, because I think there is a lot of principles that if you apply, maybe 100 different principles to your life, that you probably can apply all those 100 and become a millionaire. But the first step of any is just go out there and freaking start your company, because if you don't, you can have all the knowledge in the world and all those business plans, and it doesn't matter. And so that my long-winded answer, year 4 after getting number one fastest growing company in Sacramento, I didn't even have a business plan. We sat there in meetings, but it wasn't a business plan. We're taking this month to month, baby.
Yeah, because you got to pivot every month, every quarter. There's something new. There's, it's hard to plan for anything, right? Like, there's certain things, obviously, you have to put procedures in place, but it's kind of as you go, right? Like, okay, here's another problem. Let's figure it out, each day. And I love manufacturing. That's the coolest thing when you make a new product. I've been in the supplement industry. Now I'm in CBD. And it's fun. You get to create a product, and then the best part is you get to sell it and make money off something you created. Where was your first product? Where did you source it? Did you go overseas? Did you keep it in the States? Or
one disclaimer, then answer your question. I'm a huge believer in business plans. I don't want people to be like, oh, Jeremy never used a business plan. And so, if you fast forward 13 years later, we have a whole corporate annual operating plan that our board meets on quarterly. We follow budget. Like, we freaking nail that annual operating plan, and we do follow a business plan really, really closely now. I mean, each division has business plans. Like, my point on it's like and that's one of the other things like probably talk about. Like, there's levels to business. There's creating a company in your garage and flying by the seat of your pants, right? And you probably don't need an elaborate business plan. But then there's also having like 240 employees, a $10 million line of credit. Like, we have to have plans at that level, so those are different. But yeah, so back to your question, in the very beginning, in medical device, I would just go to trade shows and meet other manufacturers, and somebody would be launching a product and they needed distribution. I'm like, hey, I got a few sales reps in Northern California. We'd love to represent your product. In the very beginning, they're like, hey, we'll just give you just Sacramento. And then we were in Northern California, and then we started doing all of California. And it was after about, 2-3 years, and we started expanding state by state. And then after that, it's like just copy paste, right? It's like, that's a great thing about business too. It's like, there's so many books. Like, one of the books, Scaling Up, or there's a book called E-Myth, and it's just about how you create businesses, make them profitable, and then it's just copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. And it's like, look at Chick-fil-A, right? Like I know some people that own Chick-fil-A restaurants, but that's a franchise that's already been laid out. Like if you start one just started down the street from me, a brand new Chick-fil-A, and the line's like out the door, like that. They've got that whole system down so well that whoever starts that is going to be successful, you know? No, that's what we do for our distributors. So if I start in a new state, like in Ohio or something, then that distributor come in, I'm like, I already have the business. I have the plan, the products, the shipping, everything's set up for you to be successful. We just need you guys to introduce us to some of the doctors, and we can get this thing going real fast. Like, so that's where we add value. And then they have the feet on the street, and they a lot of times have the relationships there in that state. So it's, when you get to that level in business though, you can copy paste really, really quickly because you have the whole platform built out.
Oh, you're good. No, I was just going to say, I find that interesting. You say, Chick-fil-A goes in and automatically there's a line, no matter who's working there, you just know that it's Chick-fil-A. And I mean, we've been to, different fast food restaurants. Like we have a Carl's Jr. across the street from us that's meh. And we've had good Carl's Jr.'s too. It's one of those things, but Chick-fil-A always seems to have this standard of quality that seems to go across all of their stores, and they hold to strict standards. Is there something like kind of that you take from that where, okay, we want to make sure that we are a name that people respect. We want to make sure that we put out good products over and over again, and that we're not, treating someone great in this state, but treating them well. And, was that kind of a big thing to you to make sure that consistency was key?
Yeah, I think you hit on a big thing. Like in the very, very beginning of my company, so like, let's say day one, I'm the only employee. So I'm the sales rep, I'm the fitter, I'm the admin. Like I had to do it all. Like when checks come in, I would sit there and log the payments into the computer. I mean, I've done every single, even in my company, not every time, but a lot of times I start quarterly meetings. Like no matter what you do in the company, I've done it. Like, cause I just did it for 4 years, and at the end of the day, it's like, it really comes down to the fact that when you start a company out of your garage and you do every single thing, it becomes, I think there's value in it. Like I know there's I'm in a group called YPO. It's outsourced. It's like CEOs, founder startup people. And the other half are like hired guns that come in from the outside. And I just think the success rate on the ones from the outside are not as good, Well,
because everything, right? You know the ins and outs, and I think your company respects you, obviously, as you're the CEO, but that you've done everything. You know exactly what needs to be done, and you can't teach it or progress it through your company if you've never done it. So I think that's probably really vital in your business. And then, back to the manufacturing. I want to know your first product, because I have in my warehouse, I have 5,000 detoxes that were just shit. And they're still there. It's been like 12 years later. Because that's the thing with manufacturing, right? There's big MOQs. What was that like in the first product? Was it overseas? Was it in the States? And how many units did you have to order? And did you ever make a monumental mistake like I have, where I have a giant word in the beginning of the label? So now I have, 5,000 units that are literally still in my warehouse 13 years later. And I haven't thrown them away. It's more of like a lesson. Be like, okay, do it right. It's still there. I look at it every day, and it's a reminder of what not to do.
So when COVID hit, I know you guys probably remember this because it hit us all so hard. But remember how like masks were so hard to get, and it turns out we have a side company called Precision. So our main company is Precision Medical Products, and Precision Disposable Products is like my lesson in life and business of what not to do. So like what I want to do is like one day, teach entrepreneurship, and like for as many stories that show what to do, there's always stories over here what not to do. And Precision Disposable Products is like my 5-year run at what not to do. Anytime I step foot in this company, I fuck it up every time. Like, yeah. So the quick version of that, what not to do, is I started this company and go, okay, we work with surgery centers, right? And I did a 3-year program at MIT. So I did, on a CEO side, I've done 1 year at Harvard and 3 years at MIT for as a CEO, right? And so these CEO programs are like, there's this really good leverage point called horizontal integration. So we have 5,000 surgeons that work with us nationwide. So this guy at MIT is presenting, and I'm like, this is what I'm gonna do. It's like light bulb goes off moment. I'm like, He's like, what the products you sell, how do you take those same customers and just add products onto them? Which makes complete sense. Like you're walking away from free money. So we went and talked to some of our surgery centers, and like, we're paying a lot for gloves, masks, band, all this disposable products. So we start precision disposable products. We're like, same surgeons, same customer, but we're going to add all these disposable products. Well, the lesson turns out simple now. There's all these things I did in the beginning of the company that I didn't do with the second company. So like when you start a company, it's really important you start like small and you just test run stuff, like, right? So I didn't test run anything. Like, we already have we were super cocky and confident, fast growing company. Everything we do is so good. So we buy all these products, just like what you did, masks, Band-Aids, whatever. And we bought like, I don't even know, like 50 or 80 different products. I spent $3 million on products because I'm like, our surgery centers are going to order them. And I already talked to the surgery centers, like, yeah, we'll order your products. So like, great, everything it's gonna work great. We get the first PO from the first surgery center, and they're like, wait, hold on, we have a McKesson contract, we can't go off of that, so we can't order from you. I'm like, oh. Well, it turns out everybody out in the industry has McKesson, Medline, Cardinal. They get rebates from them. Even if we beat their pricing, they can go get the rebates on pharmaceuticals and just crush us. Like, their POs are in the millions. Ours were in like the thousands. Like, we were just a tiny, tiny fish in that really big pond. We got crushed. So check this out. This is how bad of a story this is. What we got to do. I had to like basically give away all that product. $3 million. I basically gave it away for like $1 million and lost $2 million on it. Okay. That's round one. That was 5 years ago. But Jeremy Perkins doesn't give up, right? So COVID hits and they're like, everybody comes back there. We will pay you immediately for masks. If you can get the masks, I already have them. I have them. This is like how not to run business. I gave away all the masks at like 30 cents. And when COVID hits, I could have sold them for $3. I would have made like $9 or $10 million on that same inventory that I just gave away 6 months before COVID hit. Literally. You hear this story, you're like, oh my God, this is the worst time in the world. The guy buys $3 million product, sells it, fire sells it for $1 million because nobody will buy it. I didn't want it to expire, so I just fire sell it. COVID hits, and then everybody's calling me up. Do you have masks? Do you have gowns? Do you have all this stuff? We need it now. Everybody's out. I'm like, oh my God. So what do? I go reorder everything again. I'm like, we're going to make this back, right? It's COVID. We're going to make it back. The first 2 months, I do make it back. Like we made a couple million profit the first 2 months. But I'm like, put everything into this. Start ordering. We were flying. The numbers are insane. It was like, in the hundreds of thousands, we would pay for full freight airliner airplanes and fly them over to China, fill them up with all these disposable products and fly them back. We're like, we're going to be the heroes. If you know that disposable world, everything turned really quick. So Medline and McKesson and all these manufacturers caught up after about 4 months. They all their inventories caught up. So as I'm air flying everything over, I got shipments of containers coming over. Long story short, I get caught with another $3 million sitting just in this inventory warehouse. And they're like, oh, McKesson's back, Medline. It was like deja vu again. I'm like, dude, I already did this lesson before. And it was like me and so many other people during COVID were in masks. I remember there was like realtors selling masks. Do you guys remember this?
No.
It was like insurance guys selling them. Like, it was the craziest thing because everybody needed masks.
Well, I remember the COVID tests were huge. I had a buddy that did real well selling COVID tests, but yeah, it was like a really short-lived, situation where you had like a 6-month window or a year window to make a lot of money. So it sounds like you doubled up and then everyone else caught up and you're like, oh, here we go again. Yeah. So frustrating. Oh,
no, same thing for you, Branden. Like, okay, so in order to be successful in life, you can't hit a home run every time, right? It's never going to happen. I know that sounds easy, but it's like, I have to sit there in board meetings like, okay, you just lost the company you lost $2 million 3 years ago, and then you turn around and lost another 2.5.
You're consistent.
Like, from an investor standpoint, can you just please stay out of disposal? So I'm like, I sign up. I'm closing this company. We will never, if another pandemic, like I'm just not gonna. I'm gonna stay out of that. It's not my area of expertise, But I tell that because it's all right to fail, right? But if you're going to fail, what I probably should have done is just failed on a smaller level. The COVID pandemic thing was an anomaly. I mean, that's like hopefully it's a once in a lifetime, a thing. So that was a little bit, pouring jet fuel on the fire. But still, when I look back, 50 years from now, I'll be like, I will have made, hundreds of millions, if not billions over my whole career And if I have a couple losses where I had 5 or 6 things that I lost 2-3 million on, it's fine.
But it's that mentality that made you all that money, right? I did the same thing. I'm in CBD, like I said, and I bought a bunch of CBD sanitizer, from China, came in. I had cases and cases and cases of it. And just like you, everyone caught up. Every CBD company had a sanitizer. Like the next week after I placed my order, I probably got like 50 emails saying we got CBD sanitizer, and I'm like, oh man, like but it's that mentality that gets you where you're at, right? You got to take risks. And I think for my industry, it's frustrating. Like when you talk about painkillers and stuff like that, I have a product right now. It's called HHC. I've tried everything for pain, right? Everything you can think of, acupuncture, every pill. I don't like the way painkillers make me feel. I have a healthy alternative, but there's no way, like when you talk about insurance companies, I know I could give this product to a doctor's office. I deal with a lot of concierge doctors, and I know this is better for the client. I know it is going to help their pain levels, but there is no way in hell the insurance company is going to approve it. So it's situations like that are very frustrating. Have you ever, as I know we did a CBD deal together, do you ever have a product where you're like, I know this works, but insurance company isn't going to cover it? There's no chance. Have you been in that situation, and how frustrating is that?
That's my life on a daily basis. Like any month, we bill anywhere from 9,000 to 12,000 claims per month. So let's just say 10,000 claims a month. We will get denied on 45% of them. So I have 4,500 claims that my team has to fight on a monthly basis. Like it's just, it's out. And the stuff that's crazy. It'd be like, Tim, like, it was your sister had the hip surgery?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like she's had a hip surgery. She has a super high risk for blood clot. There's like a 45% chance of like, yeah, denied. You're like, whoa, it doesn't make any sense. The game it's the saddest thing. We have to go back and just fight them for 2-3 months. And then they go, okay, well, this company fought us for 3 months. Now we'll pay it. Like it's not like we provide the studies, the literature, there's a Surgeon General warning on blood. Like all that stuff's done. It's just the insurance industry is built around not paying for things. Like that's just how it's done.
Yeah, it's like for car insurance, same thing. You they find every way not to pay. That is you have to have it, but when you need it, it's like, well, this happens. They find every excuse not to pay. When you go, so when you manufacture, I assume it's a lot overseas. Did you have to fly out there, or because that's the main thing that I've had issues with is the communication barriers, and I feel like 1 out of 10. You'll find a good manufacturer. I'm like, all right, I finally found one, but then it's 9 out of 10 of shit products that you can't use. I feel like the highly successful manufacturers is they have a connection out there where they can actually fly out there, meet them. Did you have the same kind of scenario, or what? I guarantee there's been many products that you've made be like, oh, this is shit, throw it away.
It's probably about the right number. If 1 out of 10 is actually a good manufacturer, makes a good quality product, 99 out of 100 manufacturers in China are shady. It's what it is. And they will take your product and rip it off. Like I've seen my product has 22 patents on it. We filed a 2-year international lawsuit taking down other people trying to make, same thing everybody deals with. You ever like Rolex has spent so much money. Same thing with like Louis Vuitton. Like they make a great high quality product, and then somebody in a China manufacturer is like, oh, I can make the same thing and change the stitching a little bit, and now I've got Louis Vuitton with a slightly off. Like, and it happens all the time. So they're like the way you ultimately make a lot of money. I feel like in business, and I remind myself of this all the time because sometimes it's a 2-3 year play. Like in the very beginning, we were doing Me Too products. We were just representing other people's stuff, right? And then we started getting into like technology, bringing on engineers, bringing on like our own product development team. We want to make unique stuff that was better, that really made a difference, like lighter weight, mobile, lithium-ion batteries, so you can move around with it. Like we did a lot of innovation to it. But if you're going to innovate, you better put patents around it because your competitor's going to, like, the next day take your idea and duplicate it. So we spend a lot of time and money on patents. It has helped us. And we've also had to, defend those patents so that way people don't rip them off. And I think that is ultimately where, when you get into like that, the big companies, if you want to be like a really big, like $100 million, billion-dollar company, you have to protect those trademarks and patents. So
yeah, I'll tell you, you kind of hit on something. I always wish that I could go back in time right before COVID and just, buy into some mask company or something like that, and then get out of it in about 6 months. Cause it's funny. I remember going to, Old Town Sac, and that like kind of touristy area there. And there were whole stores that were just selling masks. They weren't doing anything else, right? Like they would normally be the stores that were selling you the silly t-shirts and stuff. I went to Sacramento and all I got was this stupid shirt. Now they have the masks. And I was just like, that's so funny. I'm sure if I go back there now, they won't have anything there. I don't know what will be in its place, but that is something, man, I really wish I would have jumped on that right away. But you're talking about running into all these issues with the medical patents and the medical issues and things like that, other companies there. But you mentioned earlier you kind of started with penis pumps. You ever think maybe you should have just stayed with that? Because I think you'd have a lot less competition and people saying, no, we already have a penis pump contract with, Sweden. We can't do this with you. I just say Sweden because Austin Powers had a Swedish-made penis enlarger pump, and that's kind of what I figure.
So in the medical world, nobody even uses the word penis pump. It's like it's called vacuum therapy. It's like it's for erectile dysfunction. It's like a real thing. Like it's urology. Like it's a real issue. That's why like Viagra and Cialis and all these medications. Those medications were originally developed for neuropathy, and it just turns out like you couldn't, like, people wouldn't have like feeling in their fingers and stuff, so they're trying to move blood to the extremities. And it turns out that they were moving a lot of blood to extremities, and it did it pretty well. And that's kind of how that developed. So the quote unquote penis pump has it's vacuum therapy. It was like designed for a purpose. We tried it because in our space, we have insurance contracts like Blue Cross, Healthcare, Cigna, Medicare, all that. And it was as an approved product on our vendor list. So we were just like, hey, we have it on contract. We can talk to some of these urologists who are right in the same buildings as our other doctors. Let's just try it. It wasn't successful, so we got out of it quick. And I think one of the big lessons on this is like if you asked me, 20 years ago, that I'd be doing blood clot prevention, like I any room I walk into, I'm definitely the dumbest person in the room. And I'm not just saying that. Like these guys are like neurosurgeons, orthopedic surgeons. They went to school for 14 years. I barely, I think I cheated probably like halfway, like half of college was like me finding ways to rip off answers from like smarter kids in class. Like I'm for sure not the smartest person in the room. I never thought I'd have a medical device company that has patents and is doing like class 2 and class 3 medical devices. Like it would have never, if you asked me 20 years ago, it would have never happened. But I think the point is like, it's not always how smart you are. It's more your drive and passion and desire to figure things out and just being like, we're really transparent with doctors. They'll ask me questions all the time. I'm like, I don't even understand what you just asked. Like, like you're way smarter than me. Like, do you mind if I just take 24 hours and go look up the right answer? They laugh and I'm like, yeah, no problem. Like they scratch their head and they're like, you're the CEO of this company? Like, yeah,
Everyone we have on here, like it's been the ongoing theme, the successful guys, everybody's humble. Everyone knows they can learn more. And I feel that's an ongoing theme is literally everyone we've talked to. This is episode 16, and we've had professional athletes. We've had highly successful people in all kinds of fields, and across the board, it's humble. They always can learn more. They don't know everything. And I feel that's really good advice to give listeners is if you're, want to be an entrepreneur, you got to be humble and you got to take action. Those are like the two big things. And that you can always learn more. There's no one that knows it all. And it seems like the know-it-alls don't do very well.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And also, you remember that first year, like when we talk about like the different products and stuff we were selling, like anytime you start a business, it's hard, right? If it was easy, everybody would do it. That's like, it's same thing. If you're doing anything, when loans were hot, everybody was selling loans. When real estate was hot, like, I mean, I always make the joke, everybody and their mom's a realtor. Like my mom's a school teacher and she became a realtor. Like she's very good, but I don't know, any given like small town, there's 100 realtors. Like the barrier to entry is not very high. So for me, I remind myself almost every day, like what we do is very, very hard. Insurances deny it. Like we're fighting with, we fight dealing on so many different issues, but because of that, it keeps a lot of people out of the space. It would take somebody probably about 7-8 years to get to the level we're at, just with like products, technology, distribution. Like we have a lot of, they call them moats, so you want to create moats around your business that keep you, successful and keep people out of your area. So
have you ever got into cross the barrier of pharmaceuticals? Has that ever crossed your minds? I know there's a ton of money in that, and you have the relationships with all these doctors. Have you ever thought about moving over to that part of the business?
Yeah, if I could go back in time 10 years, and I only got like 1 minute to spend with myself, I would just say, stay in your lane and don't get into any, because it's like pharmaceuticals is, what is that, like $1 trillion industry? I don't even know. Like, I mean, we're good at what we do, but we're not going to compete with like Pfizer and like all these big companies. They squash us in a heartbeat. Like, so, I mean, yeah, but at the end of the day, if we did pharmaceuticals, we'd just be selling somebody else's product. And then you're back to the whole, like, you sell it for them for a year, 2-3 years, you do really well. Then they go, okay, hey, thanks for your time. We're bringing somebody else in at a much lower cost, So it's not our area of expertise. We stay in, we'll stay in what we, that's our vision.
And how is cannabis now? I'm in that industry, and how is that in your industry? Is it, as I know, a lot of doctors are making that basically that term, like, okay, we can offer. I don't know. I feel like they can offer it, but they really can't. It's like, hey, you should try this. We can't sell it to you, but I feel like doctors are getting more on board with cannabis, but it's kind of a, hey, you should try this, but you didn't hear it from me. Do you think that's ever going to be a staple in the medical community where they can make it in a pharmaceutical grade and sell it as doctors?
They say in the medical industry, everything happens 10 years later. So it's like in the real world, some innovation will come out, everybody catches on, they're like, boom, it happens real quick. In medical, there's so many barriers between like insurance companies, hospitals, studies. I mean, anytime they want to do something on pharmaceuticals, it's like a 5-year study. So everything's just delayed. I think you nailed it. I just think you're probably ahead on the chessboard in terms of like, it'll eventually be there. I mean, it makes complete sense. Why not? Like, what's the alternative is like some, lab engineered pharmaceutical. It's like, I don't know, it's pretty crazy. So when you drill down to it, a lot of the stuff in medical makes you scratch your head, and you're like, even the cold therapy thing, it's like, we're not, because I don't really have a dog in the fight. We don't make a cold therapy machine. We do other people's. Like, why would you not use cold therapy over a pain med? Like, it's not even like, I don't know, but the insurance company will deny the cold therapy, then pay for the pain med. It's like, it's a head scratcher,
I kind of feel like maybe they do it because it doesn't work as well. You can kind of keep selling that product over and over again. If something works well, you sell it once and it's gone. I don't know. I hate to put on that villain hat there.
If you want to put on the villain hat, we'll probably get canceled for this. But this is what it is. This is the freaking reality. Pharmaceutical companies have more money than God, right? And they have lobbyists everywhere. And they infiltrate Congress and DC and regulators, insurance companies. It's all like it's all backdoor money everywhere. And at the end of the day, that's what it all boils down to. It's like, I don't know, Pfizer medications approved. It's like, none of the studies even back this thing up. Yeah, well, this is the one that's on our plan. It's like, I wonder how that happened. Like, so that's what it all comes down to, man. It's all backdoor money, lobbyists. They get really high reimbursement for stuff that's all paid on the back door. I mean, that's the reality. So,
yeah. No, I wanted to briefly touch on a couple things. One, once again, I appreciate that you are humble in what you're doing, saying that you don't know a lot about this stuff. You also mentioned a little bit about DVT, that's deep vein thrombosis, I believe. That's clearly not something I'm sure you knew about going into it, but then start learning about it. So what I'm curious is, like, you guys, I read a quote that said you guys are like sort of the leading company when it comes to, DVT and helping people out with that. Where along the lines are you, like, you know what I mean? Like, is someone bringing you a product and saying, hey, this might help for this, and then you're researching it, looking into it? Or are you kind of like, hey, let's look at this problem and try to fix it? Like, I'm curious kind of how that comes about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like 3 years ago, we won a big medical device innovation award, and they presented this thing to me, and it felt really good at the time. We get on stage, get this award, like medical device saving lives, you innovated. And the next day, I turned to like my counterpart in the company, Austin, who we worked together for like over a decade, and I'm like, bro, like all we did, we just took this clunky unit sitting on the side of a hospital, right, bed, and we're like, we bring it to the engineers, like, how do we make this thing smaller? They're like, oh, this technology is like 20 years old. We just do this, this, and this. We just listen to people like, okay. And then they're like, oh, if instead of plugging it in, now you can use a lithium ion battery. I didn't invent a lithium ion battery. I didn't all we did is took it to engineers, like, how do we make this better? We made some changes. We talked to the patent attorney. He filed the patents. And I turned to Austin like, bro, we just won this like huge medical device innovation award with like scientists and medical doctors in the room and all this. They're like, oh, because I mean, when you look at the big picture, we did do something. Like, we took a big clunky loud device, we made it smaller, we made it portable, and we made it hook up to the patient's leg. But in all reality, I might be dumbing it down too much, but it took us like a year and a half, 2 years to do it. We changed designs and did all these things, and it's like, we did. I don't know. Like, you look at it, and it really wasn't that big of a thing. It was like, we're not putting a man on the moon or doing anything like you hear about that's too crazy. And I do think in life sometimes, like, even if you really really think about it on a high level, Uber is like a multi-billion-dollar company. All Uber did is like, hey, you used to call up on the phone to get a taxi. We're gonna do that through an app, and then we're gonna create they use mapping programs that are through Google and other platforms. Like, you really dive in. I know what they do now is like a lot more elaborate and stuff, but in the very beginning of Uber, they were doing it all manual. I don't know if you ever heard the case study on it, but they actually had like people sitting in rooms of customer service that were patching taxis and stuff for you, but it's just through the app in the beginning. And that's why my whole point on all this is like, you can create a really, really good business by just starting. And they call it MVP. It's a minimal viable product. It doesn't have to be perfect in the beginning, but it just needs to help people a little bit. And then over time, you can make it better and better and better. And that's probably the big takeaway, because I think you get to a certain level and it's like, oh, that's great what Elon's doing with, self-driving cars, but I'm not, it's like, I'm not going to get to that level. But if you take it a step back and you're like, well, we're all like experts in certain areas. So it's like, on this particular thing in life, like, I do know it pretty well. How can I make that small thing better? And boom, you got a business,
And then I want to touch on a really important aspect of your life. I want to talk about that pool.
Yeah.
That is, as you know, I think you've been to my house. I love pools. I love rocks. And you just made my backyard look just like a little speck of dust compared to what you built. Tell us about that, because I'm a backyard guy. I like rocks. I like waterfalls. And that is the most amazing backyard. And I know you sold it. But tell us about that. I mean, you were on a TV show. I watched that. It is absolutely incredible. I've never seen anything like it in a residential home. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that all comes back to vision, right? And I'll say a small disclaimer. You did inspire me, because on social media I'd see your stuff for a while, and you'd be like, you got the water slide back there and the rocks and like people jumping off and throwing those backyard parties. I'm like, that's so cool. So I small props to you for that. But it started. I'm a huge like vision board guy. Like, I'm kind of cheesy like that. I probably put more time, energy into vision, and then that vision will be like what inspires like my plans and stuff. So I don't know when it was, but 15 years ago, let's say, I was in Kauai at the Grand Hyatt in Kauai, and I had no money at the time. I just had barely enough money to afford that vacation. I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of that, but the Grand Hyatt has like the most spectacular pool ever. And it's like, it's fascinating. It's like, there's like pools that run into other pools that come into the lagoon. And I was like, I'm going to build out of my backyard one day. And I've talked about this all the time. And nobody ever believed me. They're like, okay, whatever. Like pipe dream. And then when I started building this thing, people were like, holy shit, like you really are building this resort in your backyard. So and I didn't know, like my goal was never, I didn't start this to be like, what's the square footage of the biggest pool ever built? I'm going to beat that. Like that was not the goal. The goal was with the designer, I'm like, how do we duplicate this resort in Kauai, in a backyard? And at first he's like, that's not really possible. And then we started like engineering things and doing it. Like, I think we can do this. And, the long story short, when it was all finished, because we didn't know, we kept adding stuff and like we changes things. He's like, so the pool manufacturer that I worked with was the second biggest manufacturer in California. So they called the first biggest. Like, have you ever built a pool that's 270,000 gallons? And the competitor's like, no, not. We have one pool. It's like 190 or 220. I don't know, whatever the number was. There was a pool that was like 20% smaller. And then they called like two more companies because you really can't. It's really hard to pull up on Google and be like, pool gallons in California and get accurate data. We looked it up online because I want to make sure we weren't misquoting. Because when I sold the house, I want to make sure that statement was correct, that it was the biggest pool ever built in California. But according to Google and according to like the 5 biggest manufacturers of pools in California, nobody's ever built one that big. And that thing had a lazy river. It had like a jet propulsion system with these jet engines that would push water and you could float this lazy river. It came into like an underground cave that was, I think it was like 17 feet deep, the cave. The water slide, these engineers from Michigan had to fly out to the house because there was like, we built it. I said I want to go as fast as humanly possible. And they're like, well, at one point on one of the curves, it'll throw your kids out of the slide. And like, it doesn't pass code. So we need to slow it down. And I was like, well, let's not slow it down. Like, can we put if we tube it? The first was all open, like an open water slide. And the engineer's like, yeah, if you tube it, you could, the kids might spiral inside, but they'll still stay in there. I'm like, oh, perfect. That's as long as they don't, we'll keep them in that tube. So that thing was like, it was a machine, man. Like the water slide was 105 feet long, and it jammed. It was like there was people that didn't want to do it again. They're big adults, like that was fun, but that water slide was fast.
Well, what was the total bill when everything was said and done? I know with mine, you keep adding stuff and adding this, and I don't even want to compare mine to yours. It's not even close. But did you do all the math? And what did that come out to? It's probably an insane amount.
I mean, the pool alone was over $1 million. I kept adding on stuff. So and I don't know where you delineate the difference. Cause like when you go to like sidewalks and lighting and sound systems, and I mean, it just keeps going. Like, I'll tell you this is like another lesson in life. Like, I lost money on that. Like, it wasn't like, it wasn't one of these things that was like a labor of love. And like, I would have stayed in that house forever. I love that backyard. Cause I'm the same thing as you, Branden. When I go look at homes, even when I moved to Austin, Texas, I actually weird. The realtors always laughed at me. I don't go through the front door to look at a house. I go to the side gate and walk right to the backyard. I'm like, what's the backyard look like? Like if that backyard's not checked, then it's not like I won't buy the house. So that was my dream backyard. If it wasn't for California and all the bullshit like regulations and COVID and overtaxing of people, California's got to be the most beautiful state. I don't think anything will ever. California is gorgeous, and I love the people there. I love everything about it. But that's the worst ran state in the nation, in my opinion. And being a business owner, it's really hard to have your company based in California. I'll tell you this: like 2 years later, it's 10 times easier running a company in Texas than California. So I'll always go back to California and visit. I got my brothers, my family, all that's back there. I'm coming back there again in 2 weeks. But when it basically came down, after COVID, I'm like, I got this amazing resort in my backyard, and I'm stoked. But just running a company there is very, very difficult. That was the reason I sold it. It wasn't for, you build something like that, a pool like that. It's like a lot of time and energy. It's not the money. It's just like, I don't know. It's you wake up every morning and you can, you enjoy your backyard. So.
What was your energy bill like? I can't even imagine, like, because you were PG&E, right?
Bro, nobody understands that pool was like a 2-year thing. Like I had to go apply, I had to go fight with the city for 6 months. I had to get it had its own separate power grid. The jet engines that pushed just the lazy river alone, it had jet engines built into the bottom that push water. That alone, those 2 jet engines put out more power when they were running than like 3 homes combined. Like they were, I mean, that was just, but the thing had like a normal pool had like 1 or 2 pool pumps, maybe 3 pool pumps. That had 28 pool pumps just to keep it clean. Like that was the pump. It was like, I mean, the thing was, it was a little overkill.
I'll say I think my favorite part of it is the sunken fire pit that you had in there too. I thought that was amazing how you're basically in the ground, but you got the water around you and the fires cooking. Was that your idea? Was that one of your vision board ideas, or was that something that like the engineers kind of threw your way?
I mean, I had a lot of like high level pictures of just like what I want to do. Like here's things I want. They kind of put those Tetris pieces together. So I mean, I wanted the fire pit for sure, but they were able to like take my scatterbrain ideas and basically like make it all work with the flow and everything. So hey,
yeah, no, yeah.
That Michael Rubin thing, they just threw that Hamptons party up there.
What was it?
That party they just threw in the Hamptons, like Jay-Z, Beyonce.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Ben Affleck, like Leonardo DiCaprio was there, the Kardashians, like just everybody was there, right? I was thinking, I was like, man, that was one thing that really, really made me miss that pool when I was seeing those pictures posted of all that party. I'm like, because that pool was like set up to be the world's greatest like party spot. Like,
who bought it? Was there a local business guy or who was the one that actually bought it?
I mean, I can't legally say.
Okay, but was it a friend or was it?
No, that's somebody you would know. It was a guy that did franchises, but I'm not supposed to disclose it. So.
Yeah, got it. Well, we thank you for your time. I mean, you had a wealth of knowledge to give the listeners, and we love how humble you are, and what an awesome success story. Leaving here, what advice can you bestow on all our listeners? If you could, in a couple of sentences, someone that's listening wants to start a business, what's the best advice you can give them?
Yeah, so there's like 100 pieces of advice, right? So it's like just like one thing I'd say is focus on the next level up. So like, for example, I'm doing this like mentorship program right now. And in the mentorship program, there's like 10 levels of success. Like, so if you have a business, let's say you're in that $0 to $100,000 range of like what your net worth, even if you're not a business, like let's say you're a corporate person doing pretty well. I don't really want to do my own company. I'd rather just be inside a company. That's fine. Whatever your net worth is, take that next level. There's 10x. So you go like the first, group would be the people like 0 to 100 grand. Then you go 100 grand to $1 million. Then you go $1 million to 10 million. And then you go 10 million to 100 million. And one thing I always did, you don't want to go focus on 2 or 3 levels up from you, because it gets like right now, like me trying to wrap my head around like what Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, like it gives me a headache, and I'm like, dude, I can't keep up. Like, but if I go, hey, my net worth's 100 million, and I go meet somebody, and I've done this, like I've got a few of these guys I met through MIT that are billionaires, but they're just they're at like 1 billion. They're not at 200 billion or anything crazy. And I'm only 10x away from them. And they're a little bit older, and they can show me the path of how they got there and things they can do and things they did with like real estate and just like certain like power moves. Just find out whoever it is above you that's just 10x higher. So if your net worth's 10 grand, find somebody that's worth 100 grand. Like, how do you get that next level? And then once you get there, go to the next one. Like if you're 100 grand net worth, find somebody who's a millionaire. If you're a millionaire, find somebody 10 million. You get it. And I think that's really, really important. If you just find the next level up and learn from that person, you just take it stage by stage, like 5 years at a time, you can move up pretty quick, and you learn from them. Because I'll tell you this, the one thing I've learned is the people that are worth $1 billion do things totally different than the people that are worth like 10 billion. Like the billionaires, they're not in their companies very much. They're staying high level. They're doing investment stuff. They're super big picture. Whereas like if you're a new entrepreneur, like the 1 million level, you need to dive into your company, you need to be hands-on, you need to scale it. Like there's different stages to entrepreneurship and business and success. I just say, like, just focus on that next level, find a mentor that is, the next stage above you, 10X, and learn from them and duplicate it. It's really, really powerful. They can teach you how to skip years that may have taken you way longer. So that'd be my last piece of advice.
All right.
I love it. Yeah. And I just got to say, I think what you're doing is great. I see why you have success and why people seem to like working for your company. I look forward to when you guys become international so that you could become Precision International Medical Products, PIMP.
I love it.
Just throwing it out there.
Go trademark that.
We appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. So much knowledge that you've given our listeners. So 2 Bees in a Pod, Sweeter Than Honey podcast. We're out. Jeremy Perkins, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate you.
Pleasure.
Thanks for watching 2 Bees in a Pod. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment, share, and thank you for all the love and support.